everyone, it's Ileana and I have a card to share with you today. I am going to be using this pattern that I found on Pinterest. I just did a search for triangle patterns and I came up with this one. It was on the very first row, so I just decided to go with it. I pulled out all of my triangle stamps that I had, and I have 3 different sets. I'm not sure why I have so many triangles, but I do. I have the Altenew Trigonometry, the Altenew sohcahtoa, and the Simon Says stamp Perfect Shapes. I used that image from Pinterest to create a pattern using the stamps that I had. And once I had my pattern all set, I used that as a template. So I'm just taking the various triangles from all of the stamp sets, and I'm just going to line them up on that pattern I created. It was a lot easier for me to put all of the triangles that I was going to use onto a block, and then that way I could switch them out as I needed. I'm stamping on some Gina layering white cardstock, and I'm starting off with my lightest color. I'm starting off with the Altenew Dewdrop. The other blue that I'm going to be using is the Aqualicious, and for my neutral tone I'm going to be using the Altenew Limestone. Once I have my pattern started, it's a lot easier to just fill in the blanks. So I'm just taking the same stamp and I'm just moving it around. I need to create a larger triangle for the background, and so I'm using the same one, and once the ink dries you won't be able to see where the triangle overlaps. So now on to the darker colors. This is the Aqualicious, and so because there are different size stamps, I'm able to stamp a few more at one time. So I'm just lining up several of the smaller stamps. And there is a defect on the corner of one of the bigger triangles, and so you could see it right there on the bottom right where it has a divot in the stamp. And normally I didn't have a problem with it because I could just push down on the lid of the MISTI and push down that little piece. But since that other smaller triangle was in the way, I wasn't able to push down on the lid as much because the stamp was preventing it from bowing down. So in order to fix that, I just took an eraser and I used that as a dauber. The pencil eraser was a little bit too large, and so I used my mono eraser and I just dipped it into the ink and just tapped it into that little spot, and it blended out fine. You couldn't even notice that the the stamp was defective. So once that's all done, I'm going to just add the gray, and all of the stamping on the background is complete. And you can see that it goes rather quickly once you get your pattern done. Now for the sentiment, I'm going to be using a happy birthday sentiment from the sohcahtoa stamp set. You could very easily change this out to any sentiment. You can make this into a thank you card or a Father's Day card. I just thought it was just easier to do a bunch of birthday stamps for my birthday ministry that I do for my church. I find masculine cards kind of hard to do, and so I was totally out of them, so I just needed to make a dozen of them, and that would hold me over for a few months. I'm just going to be using the Wow embossing ink, and the sentiment is really fine, so you want to make sure that you have good coverage on that stamp so that you're able to see the sentiment, because it's just so fine and you're going to be stamping on white. I did prep my cardstock with my anti-static bag just so that the white alabaster powder doesn't stick to where it's not supposed to. And once it's all heat set, I'm going to let it cool off for just a little bit, and then I'm going to take my ink on 3 towel, and I'm just going to wipe off all of that anti-static powder so that you could really see how black the cardstock is. And you'll be able to see the white embossing a little bit better. Now, because I stamped it in the MISTI and it's all in a row, I'm able to trim down the sides really quickly, And so I've just lined it up with the 1/16 line, and I'm just going to draw my blade straight down. And then you can get all of those all at one time. Now for the side cut, I had trouble lining up my ruler with the edge of the black cardstock because my cutting mat was black. So I had this other pink mat that I was able to use so that I could see the black against the lines of the cut-a-line. Once I have that all done, it makes it easy to just do an assembly line with my card. So I'm able to add all of the foam onto all of the sentiments at one time. I'm just using some Ranger black foam. It just makes it easier to hide the foam underneath the sentiment. And for a little bit of detail, I used the Trigonometry die, and I cut some foil cardstock, and I did use the Thermoweb foam to layer these pieces together just to add a little bit of dimension. And I'm just placing them in different spots. I tried to do a triangle so that it would draw your attention to the sentiment. So once I get the placement, it's easy to do all the cards because then you just put them all in the same place. If you do manage to get a little spot on your cardstock, you could just use your sand eraser, and you could just erase any stray ink that you have. Now for the sentiment on the inside of the card, I'm going to be stamping on my double dip notes directly into the MISTI. I removed the foam pad and I just popped the whole pad into the MISTI. I'm using a sentiment from Altenew. It's a beautiful inside stamp, and I'm just going to stamp it and then put it inside of the double dip. I'm going to put it on the inside of my card. And it's just easy because you can just pull off the next one and you're all done. So you can see I made about a dozen of these. Thanks so much for watching. Be sure to give this video a thumbs up and don't forget to hit the subscribe button. Have a great day. Bye.